Okay, good evening, everyone. We are talking about the prohibition of consuming or eating blood. Okay, so we need to try and understand what does this mean? What is exactly prohibited? Okay, so in Vayikra, Perek Gimel, Pasuk Yud Zayin, it says, Chukat olam ledorotechem, it shall be an eternal statute for the generations. B'chol mashvotechem, in all your dwelling places. Kol chelev v'chol dam lo techel, you shall not eat the forbidden fat, you shall not eat and the blood you shall not eat. Okay, it's a type of fat called chelev, as opposed to shuman. As part of the part of the fat called chelev we don't eat. There's a shuman, which is other type of fat which we are allowed to eat. But all blood you shall not eat. Okay, in Vayikra chapter 7, Pasuk Kavav to Kav Zayin, it says, it repeats, V'chol dam lo tochlu, you shall not eat all blood, V'chol mashvatehem, all your dwelling places, la'of v'la behema, of birds and of animals. Kol nefesh asher tochal kol dam v'nichrata nefesh hi me'ameha. Any person who eats any blood, that person shall be cut off from his people. And again in chapter Yud Zayin, okay, amarti lebnei Yisrael, kol nefesh mikem lo tochal dam, hager hagar betochem lo yochal dam. Therefore I said to the children of Israel, every person among you shall not eat blood, and the stranger that resides among you shall not eat blood. Ki nefesh ki kol basar damo benafsho, hu va'omar lebnei Yisrael dam kol basar lo tochlu, ki nefesh kol basar damohu, kol ochlav yikaret. For the life of all flesh, its blood is with its life. Therefore I said to the children of Israel, the blood of all flesh you shall not eat, because the life of all flesh is its blood. Anyone who eats it shall be cut off. And he repeats it once again in Devarim. Rak hadam lo tochlu, al haaretz tishbechenu kamayim. Only the blood you shall not eat, you shall pour it on the ground like water. Rak chazak levulti, achol hadam, ki hadam hu hanefesh, lo tochal hanefesh im habasar. Only in the blood shall you eat, shall pour it out like water. Only be strong, do not eat the blood, as the blood is the life, and you shall not eat the life with the flesh. And Ragged damo lo tochel al haaretz tishbechenu kamayim. Only his blood you shall not eat, you shall pour it out on the ground like water. Okay, so we stop here. We've got 5 separate sources, all telling us don't eat blood. Okay, specifically the blood of animals and birds. Whoever does so is punished with karet. Why? Because it's the life force of the animal. You should pour it out. And then in source number 6, which we in source number 6, it says, V'ish ish v'bei Yisrael ben hagar b'tocham asher ochal kol dam, v'natati panai b'nefesh ha'ochelet et adam, hichrati ota mikerev hama. And any man from the house of Israel or from the stranger who resides among them who eats any blood, I will direct my attention to that person who eats the blood, and I'll excise him from the midst of his people. Ki neresh habasar badam hi, v'ani netativ lachem al hamizbeach lechaper nafshotechem, ki adam hu b'nefesh yechaper. Why? For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you on the altar to atone for your souls, as it is the blood that shall atone for the life. So what's the reason for this prohibition of consuming blood that appears so frequently in the Torah? The Ramban suggests, after rejecting the explanation of the Rambam in Moreh Nevuchim, linking it to idolatry, the one who consumes blood is considered as if he consumed the spirit of the person or living being. Since the spirit of living being belongs to God, it is not appropriate for one living being to eat the spirit of another. Okay, so so let's go back through here and understand. Harambam, Maimonides says, the issue is it's like idolatry, okay? Ramban, Nachmanides suggests there's another issue here, which is that we are not allowed to eat the life force, because the blood is the life force of a person or an animal, and by eating that life force, You're taking the spirit of that animal, okay? He says as follows, we'll read this in English. The appropriate explanation that we can give for the reason for the prohibition is that God created all of the lower creatures for the purpose of man, since he alone recognizes his creator. And even so, he initially permitted only vegetation and not living beings, as is clear from Parashat Bereshit. And I've talked about this many times. Behold, I'm giving you all vegetation that grows seed for food. And when, after the flood, they were saved in the merit of Noach, and he offered a korban from them, and it was favorable to him, he permitted slaughtering them, as it says, every moving thing that lives shall be yours to eat. Like the green vegetation, I have given you everything, as their existence was a result of man. And he permitted their bodies in which they live for man, that it should be for man's benefit and needs, and that their spirit, i.e. the blood, should be for atonement for man when they are sacrificed before him, through sprinkling on the altar, but not that they should eat it, since one with a spirit should not eat another spirit, since the spirits all belong to God. And see that in Hebrew? Ki ein lebal nefesh sheyochal nefesh, ki hanefashot kulan lael. Hine kenefesh ha'adam u'kenefesh ha'behema lo hena. And the spirits of a person, the spirits of an animal are his. The Or HaChaim HaKadosh from Morocco interprets the reason for the prohibition somewhat differently, as relating to allowing unwanted spiritual qualities present in the blood to enter one's body, okay? We've talked about this as well in relationship to non-kosher birds. The Ramban in Nachmanides actually says we don't eat birds of prey because we don't want to take on those negative character traits into our personality. The Or HaChaim develops this idea with blood. When a person consumes the blood of an animal, that emerges when the life force departs, for which the punishment of karet comes, the animal spirit acquires its place within the human spirit. And the verse informs us here, the one who consumes blood and brings in the lowly spirit of the animal into his soul, the high divine root will be disgusted that it will not attach itself to him anymore. By consuming blood, one brings an undesired spiritual kilipa, or peel, into himself, and that peel becomes a part of him and prevents holiness from attaching itself to him, just like a real peel. And this is the statement, I will direct my attention to the person who eats the blood, and I'll excise him from the midst of his people, meaning they will cut off the thread that is tied to the divine root, which is the source of all souls with Hashem. And this is what it says, from the midst of his people. Therefore, the God who is awesome in his doing was wise and included all the inclusions and said that one who is small and one who is great are both subject to karet when consuming the life blood. And it, the Torah, states inclusions for all levels of people, one who is small and one who is great. So we stop here. We can understand very clearly that there are a number of clear reasons why we want to be careful with blood. One is that it's idolatry. It's just Ma'aseh Avodah Zarah. That's the Rambam. The second idea of Nachmanides is that we all have a nefesh. There's an animal soul and it's a human soul, and therefore we're not allowed to eat that which is the life force of an animal, which is the blood, because we all have souls. And then we have the Or HaChaim HaKadosh who takes that further and explains that the negative, the animalistic spirit will overcome the human spirit. And so therefore we certainly want to avoid it. And certainly those pagan barbarians of the old time before monotheistic religions took over, they understood this and they wanted to eat the life force of a blood. One of the things we're not allowed to eat is ever min hachai, is a limb from a living creature. Why? One of the things that the Romans specifically and other cultures, what they like to do is they would cut off an animal's leg and they would drink the blood while the animal is still alive, because they wanted that animalistic urge for them. That was the life force flowing. which is disgusting to us, and thank God it's disgusting to us. But there was that was part of the kill, as it were, was the excitement of drinking the blood while it was still warm, while it was still the blood was flowing through the veins of the animal. Again, very far from us, but that's the original position of the Ramban, and then further expounded upon by the Or HaChaim HaKadosh. Now, what about the blood of birds and fish? Which blood is forbidden according to this prohibition? Does it include the blood of all living beings, or only some of them? According to the Mishnah in Chulin, the Torah forbids the consumption of blood of domesticated animals, wild animals, and all birds, both kosher and non-kosher. We saw that in the Psukim as well. Okay, remember that. You know, we don't have to read the Mishnah. It said it all the way in source number source number 2. V'chol dam lo tachlu, v'chol mashrotechem la'of v'la'behema. You should not eat the blood in all your dwelling places of the birds and the animals. Very clear. That's domesticated animals, wild animals, and all birds, kosher and non-kosher. The Mishnah there says, v'chomer badam shehadam noheg ba'behema v'chayev ha'of bein tmeim v'bein tehorim. The stringency here is, even if the animal is non-kosher, like a horse or a pig, you know, or a non-kosher bird like an eagle or an albatross, they're also regard to the blood. The prohibition of consuming blood applies to domesticated animals, wild animals, and birds, both those that are impure and those that are pure. Okay, so the non-kosher animals we understand, but even the kosher animals, we cannot eat their blood. Even concerning the blood of animals and birds, though there are different levels of severity of the prohibition, the Rambam explains that one is liable for the punishment of karet only for the consumption of certain types of blood. He says here in Harambam, "En chayvin karet ela al hadam hayotze b'sha'at shechita unechira." You're only chayav karet for the blood that emerges at the time of the slaughter or piercing, and nechira means when it hasn't had proper shechita, or hatazat harosh, or of the cutting off of its head. Kol zman sheyesh bo admumit, as long as there is redness there. V'adam hakanus b'toch halev, and for the blood that is gathered around the heart. V'adam hakaza, and for the blood of bloodletting. Kol zman shehu mekalech v'yatzeh, as long as it's spurting out. Aval hadam hashotet b'tchilat hakazeh kodem sheyatchil lekaleach. But regarding the blood that trickles out at the beginning of the bloodletting, before it begins to spurt out, and the blood that trickles out at the end of the bloodletting when the blood begins to stop, ein chayavin alav, there you're not chayav. V'rehu kadam ha'ivarim, that's just like the blood of the limbs. Shedam hakiluach hu hadam hanefesh yotzah ba. As the blood of the spurting out is the blood in which the soul departs. Okay, so again, this is understanding that the spurting out, the force which comes out, that is the real nefesh. That's the nefesh of the animal. And once it stopped spurting out, and then to be so crude, then it's not the life force of the animal. So that's the only blood which is chayav karet. You're still not allowed to have the other bloods, but you wouldn't be chayav karet. Although most people would not simply take the cup of blood and consume it, this halacha is extremely relevant. Due to the prohibition of consuming blood, kosher meat may not be cooked without salting it first. Since the blood that emerges from the meat when it is cooked would then be reabsorbed into the meat, thereby prohibiting the meat from being eaten. We will not discuss the halachot of salting meat in detail in this context, as they are somewhat lengthy, plus the majority of kosher meat sold today in stores is already salted and rinsed properly. However, it's worthwhile to see one practical quote from the Sefer HaKashrut concerning this topic. He says, one who purchases the meat of domesticated animals and wild animals or a bird that is slaughtered is obligated to investigate whether the meat was properly kashered, i.e. salted, rinsed, forbidden portions removed, etc. And if not, one must check how much time had passed since the slaughter, as perhaps the kashering will not be effective anymore. In the Mahadrin, most stringent kashrut organizations, Meat is sold after it's undergone the process of kashering properly. Nevertheless, this must be clearly specified on the package, which is how you see it whenever you go to the supermarket. One who receives raw meat from another who did not inform him whether he had kashered it or not, it is forbidden for him to cook it without kashering first. And one may not send meat that has not yet been kashered unless he informs them that it has not been done so. The above rules apply to the blood of animals and birds, as mentioned in the Mishnah, but fish blood is permitted since it is not a mammal or a bird. For this reason, fish does not need to be salted prior to cooking like the meat of animals or poultry. However, if one does consume fish blood, there is concern that others may see him and not realize it's fish blood and think that he is consuming prohibited blood. Marit ayin. They see it, they think he's eating blood. Okay, therefore the Shulchan Aruch rules that it is only permitted to consume fish blood when it is recognizable as such. And therefore some people, when it's codified here in Shulchan Aruch, dam dagim, fish blood, apal pishahu mutar, even though it's permissible, im kevatzor bakeli, if he gathers it into a utensil, asur mishum maritayin, it's forbidden because everyone will mistakenly think that he's eating blood. Lefichach, im nikashu medagim, if it's clear that it's from fish, kegon sheyesh bo kaskasim, for example, there are scales on the table, mutar, then it is permitted. Very similar to how sometimes before, coconut milk and almond milk were all the rage and people knew about them, you would have to put on the table the box so people could say, look, this is parv, I'm not serving you dairy with a meat meal. Okay, so as long as you have something which lets everyone know, again, not that I'm not sure anyone wants to have fish blood for dinner, but if you did like that thing, that's how you get around it. Okay, and as the Sefer Kashrut says, dag dagim mutar machila, ואף שיש מקומות שנהגו למלוח את הדגים לפני בישולם, אין זו הלכה ולא מן המנהג. He says fish blood is permitted to consume, and although there are some places that are accustomed to salting fish before cooking it, this is neither halacha nor the custom. Okay. Human blood. Okay, I got a cut in my mouth or something like that. What's the issue? So far, we've discussed the status of blood of various animals. What is the halacha regarding the consumption of human blood? According to the Gemara and Keritut, blood that has been separated from the body is permitted min ha-Torah, according to Torah law. However, the Gemara does forbid it by rabbinic law due to maritayin. So it says as follows: dam ha-tchul, blood of the spleen; dam halev, blood of the heart; dam ha-klayot, blood of the kidneys; dam evarim, blood of the limbs. Hari elu b'lo ta'aseh. Well, these are forbidden. Dam ha-cheshitayim. Now, by contrast, the blood of bipeds, which means human beings, those who walk on 2 feet, dam shratzim ramasim, blood of creeping crawlies and things like that, asur vein chayav alav, they're forbidden, but you're not obligated for them. My ein chayav alav, what does it mean you're not obligated? Karet, it means you're not chayav karet. V'had tanya, but hasn't it already taught in a braita? Dam she'al gabei kikar, hasn't it taught that if some human blood was on a loaf of bread, gororov ochlo, we may scrape it off and eat it. Shall bein hashinayim, and then he may. But if the blood is between the teeth, motzitzo, he may suck it. Ubal and he can swallow it. Ve'ena choshesh, as the blood is permitted if it has not been removed from the body. According to the Gemara, blood that remains in one's mouth may be sucked and swallowed, while blood that has left the body may not. Rashi explains the difference between these 2 cases as follows. Even though it's not like when he collected it in a utensil, and there is no prohibition, however, there is a mitzvah of separating from it and not eating it. But blood in between one's teeth, which is still considered attached, is not even subject to a mitzvah of separation, and he may suck it and need not be concerned and is not considered like having been collected. According to Rashi, even blood found on the piece of bread is not actually forbidden, and it is not considered to have the status of being collected in a utensil, which is forbidden. Rather, there is still a rabbinic injunction to abstain from it, it is no longer attached to the body. But that it's still in the mouth, on the other hand, is entirely permitted, and one may suck it without any question. According to these sources, if blood drips from one's mouth or teeth onto food that one is eating, again, a little bit disgusting, but maybe to do with the hygiene of the oral hygiene back then. Sorry, one should peel off or rinse the area on a rabbinic level, and that is the ruling of the Shulchan Aruch, who explains the reason of avoiding it due to merit ayin. Dam adam, im peresh mimenu, concerning the blood of a person, if it was separated from him, asur mishum merit ayin, it's forbidden because of merit ayin. Lefichach, im nashach akikar b'shinav, if he bit into the loaf with his teeth, v'yatza dam mishanav agibei kakar, and blood came out from his teeth onto the piece of bread, Sarich legardo, he needs to scrape it off. Aval shebein hashinayim motzitza, but if the blood is still between the teeth, he can suck it off. Rav Wasserman explains that although usually one is forbidden to perform any actions subject to merit ayin, regardless of whether anyone can see, in this case, it is permitted to suck one's blood from one's mouth. Okay? But it is difficult, as anywhere that they forbade due to merit ayin, it is forbidden even in the innermost rooms, where no one else will see. It must be answered that it is only forbidden in the innermost rooms, even if now no one is there. But it is a place that there could be people, which is not the case concerning in between the teeth, where no one could ever see it. So they're saying the reason why you can have the blood in your teeth is there's no possible way for anyone else to see it. Whereas anywhere else on your body, I guess, people would see it. The Rama adds that if human blood or fish blood became mixed into a food, it does not forbid the entire mixture due to merit ayin. V'chol dam dagim v'dam adam, hil medina shareh ena oseh taruvuto. Since they are permitted, strictly speaking, they do not forbid the mixture. Based on the above principles, what would be the halacha in a case where one's finger is bleeding? Is it permitted to insert one's finger into one's mouth? Tosafot explains that this is permitted since it is clear where the blood is coming from, and there is no concern of merit ayin that perhaps the person is consuming forbidden blood. Okay? So your child is sucking his finger, it's got a cut there, you don't need to worry about them eating blood. He says here, if his finger is dripping blood, it is permitted since it comes from there, and there's no uncertainty that it comes either from blood of a domesticated animal or a wild animal. Nevertheless, the Ben Ish Chai writes, if his finger stopped bleeding, then it is still included in the category of merit ayin. He says here, if one's finger is dripping blood, one may place his finger in his mouth if the blood is clearly dripping, as it is recognized that it is dripping from his finger. However, if the dripping is stopped and the finger is still dirty with blood, it is forbidden to place in his mouth due to merit ayin. So again, very interesting here how careful the Ben Ish Chai is that if its blood is dripping, i.e. it's still bleeding, then you're allowed to basically stop the bleeding by putting pressure by sucking hard. But if it's dried up blood, then you should be washing it in the sink. I don't know, a little technical for my taste. Maybe it's just the topic's a little bit not my favorite kind of topic. Now we're going to move on to something more practical, and that is blood spots in eggs. Okay, one of the more common practical issues relating to provision of consuming blood pertains to blood spots in eggs. Before discussing the status of blood found in most of the eggs today, the basic halacha of blood found in eggs must be explained. Okay, and we need to go through this. We have to talk about fertilized eggs versus and understand it. But let's understand the Gemara here, Masechet Chulin. Tanu Rabbanan, Gi'ulei Besim. Kosher eggs that have been boiled with non-kosher eggs, mutarot, they are permitted. Besim muzrazot, unfertilized eggs, they are not from a male and are incapable of producing chicks, are permitted, and one of strong constitution may eat them. even if the hen has sat on them for a long period of time. If a drop of blood is found in it, i.e. a fertilized egg, one discards the blood, which is the first stage of an embryo's development, and eats the rest. Rabbi Yirmiyah said, and this applies when the blood is found on its knot, i.e. the place in the albumin where the embryo begins to develop, since this proves that tissue has not developed elsewhere in the egg. And so taught Dostai, Father Rabbi Toriki, the sages taught that one may eat the rest of the egg only when the blood is found on its albumin, i.e. the knot. But if it's found on the yolk, even the rest of the egg is forbidden. What is the reason for this? It is that the decay has spread throughout all of it. The Rishonim dispute whether a blood spot found in fertilized eggs is forbidden mid-d'oraita on a Torah level or only mid-d'Rabbanan on a rabbinic level. According to Rashi and the Balei HaTosfot, since an egg is not meat, the blood inside is only forbidden mid-d'Rabbanan on a rabbinic level, even though it eventually will turn into a chick. Since at this time it is not a type of meat, it is not forbidden mid-d'oraita. Okay, you can see that there in Rashi, and also there in source 23 in Tosfot. In contrast, the Rosh, followed by his son the Tor, hold that the prohibition of consuming blood in an egg is midoraita if it is known that it will eventually turn into a chick. Concerning the blood of eggs, if it is known that it is not from the development of a chick, one is not liable for it. Rather, the sages forbade it. However, if it is known that it is from the development of a chick, i.e. it came from a fertilized egg, one is liable for consuming it. The Shulchan Aruch rules in accordance with the position of the Torah and says, Dam beitzim im yadua shu merokem ha'efroach. If you know it came from a fertilized egg, chayavim alav, then you would be chayav for eating it. Aval, im eino yodea, if you don't know shu merokem ha'efroach, if it came from a chick, it was going to develop into a chick, ein chayavim alav, you're not obligated for it. But it was nevertheless rabbinically forbade. We will now discuss some of the details concerning the differences between fertilized eggs and non-fertilized eggs. It appears from the Shulchan Aruch here that the type of eggs under discussion is fertilized eggs, which are eggs laid in a coop that contain both male and female birds and which are then fertilized by a male. In this case, if a drop of blood is found in the yolk of the egg, the entire egg is forbidden by the sages, assuming that the egg has not begun to form as per the quote in the previous source, similar to an animal not slaughtered properly, which is entirely forbidden. However, the Shulchan Aruch and Ramah dispute the halacha where the blood is found in the albumin. Must one dispose of the entire egg, or may one simply dispose of the blood and eat the rest? Here, Maran says, Shulchan Aruch, if a spot of blood was found upon it, one throws away the blood and may eat the rest of the egg, and that is when it is found in the white. But if it is found in the yolk, the entire egg is forbidden. That's Sephardic approach. The Ramah says, and some say, that if the blood is found on the knot of the white, and also outside of it, meaning that it's spread from the knot, then the entire egg is forbidden. And some are more stringent that whenever it is found on the knot of the albumin, even if it's not spread out at all, it is also completely forbidden. And from this, the custom has spread in these regions to forbid any egg that contains blood, and no distinction is made between the blood is found in the yolk or in the white, and in a locale that has the custom to be lenient, to throw away the blood and to permit the egg, and in a case where it is permitted, one must take off the width of a shell with the blood when one throws it away. Okay? So you can see here why many people, when they found blood spots, they just threw them away. It was the Ashkenazic approach. It was never the Sephardic approach. Sephardic approach is in the white, you get rid of the blood spot. If it's in the yolk, then you have to throw it out. If one cooked or baked using a fertilized egg that was not checked, after the fact, the dish is permitted, since the majority of eggs do not contain blood. Likewise, the Shulchan Aruch rules that it is permitted to cook a hard-boiled egg, lechatchila, even though the egg cannot be checked beforehand. Mutar lechol beitzim tzluyot, af al pi she'einam yecholot livdek. even though they cannot be checked. Okay? So it says here, Bidi Avad, let's say there were women baking and they didn't check the eggs. Bidi Avad, after the fact, I can rely on the chazakah, on the general rule, the majority of eggs don't contain blood spots. Hard-boiled eggs, lechatchila, I can do it because there's no way to check them ahead of time. Nevertheless, since blood spots in fertilized eggs are relatively common, one who purchases fertilized eggs from a private farmer or wholesaler selling organic produce should check every single egg for blood when opening it, since a significant minority of these eggs contain blood spots. This is based on the Ramah, who rules that although there is no obligation to check, the prevalent custom is to check. V'chein ein tzarich livdok ha'beitzim in yesh bahem dam, desomchin arov beitzim she'ein bahem dam. You don't need to, mikol makom, nevertheless, nagul hachmir, we are accustomed to be strict, keshe osin ma'achal in beitzim bayom. People become accustomed to be stringent when making a food dish with eggs during the day, shirin bahem im yesh bahem dam, because they like to check if there is blood in them. Now, what about unfertilized eggs, which is what most of us buy? Today, nearly all eggs that are sold in regular supermarkets are unfertilized, meaning that they are laid without the presence of roosters. Consequently, there is almost no concern that the blood may be that of a chick developing. Since chicks can only develop from eggs fertilized by a rooster and should not be forbidden, many poskim still maintain that the custom mentioned by the Ramah of checking eggs should be followed, though others question whether it is necessary. Regardless of whether one is obligated to check eggs or not, the Achronim agree that if one does find blood inside such an egg, it's still forbidden by rabbinic law due to the concern of marit ayin. However, the poskim disagree as to whether one may discard the blood and continue the rest of the egg. According to Rav Moshe Feinstein, it's appropriate to discard the rest of the egg as well, since there may be a minority of eggs that came from fertilization with males, and it is not a significant loss for most people. Okay, you can see this here in source 29. And he writes there, he says here, Aval lema'aseh, practically speaking, since an egg is not considered a loss at all for the vast majority of people, as seen on the fact that they were stringent for eggs for all the opinions, even though it is only a rabbinic issue where we should have followed the lenient opinion, which we do not find for other matters, that we are stringent for every opinion, even for biblical prohibitions. Therefore, since there is nevertheless a minority that comes from roosters, where the blood prohibits the entire egg, it's appropriate to be stringent, even though it is not the strict halacha. On the other hand, Hacham Ovadia Yosef said, permitted unfertilized eggs after discarding the blood. And no surprises there, since Hacham Ovadia is basing it on the Sephardic approach of Maran, that you find the blood, you remove the blood, and you can keep the rest of the egg. So therefore, for Sfaradim, we can just remove the blood and have the rest of the egg, whereas for Ashkenazim, even for unfertilized eggs, they would want to be strict because of marit ayin and throw it out. The generally accepted Ashkenazi custom is to throw out the entire egg, according to Rav Moshe, and the Sephardic custom is generally according to Rav Ovadia, as recorded in the Sefer Kashrut, who offers a summary of the halacha of blood found in eggs. It says as follows: eggs laid by hens in coops that have roosters and hens together are called fertilized eggs. If a drop of blood is found in one of them, the entire egg is forbidden like a nevela, and the egg renders cooked dishes or baked food forbidden, and the utensil as well must be kasher through hagalah. Eggs laid in coos where only hen are kept are called unfertilized. According to the leading poskim, blood found in them is only forbidden due to marit ayin, and the rest of the egg and certainly the rest of the food and the utensil are permitted. Considering an egg that is uncertain whether it comes from natural or artificial fertilization, one should be stringent, forbid it, but if it is mixed in, even with one additional egg, one may be lenient, permit it. Tenuva eggs are largely unfertilized. About 85% are unfertilized, about 15% are fertilized, and they may be treated as unfertilized eggs. However, according to the ruling of many poskim, when one finds blood in one of them, that egg is entirely forbidden, and the rest of the dish in which it was cooked is permitted. However, for Sfaradim, it is sufficient to throw out the blood alone. Now, I'm reading this And I have to say, this is a classic example of a book written by Ashkenazim. Why do I say that? Because it could have been very much clearly said in a very different way. And the different way of saying it is as follows. If you are Ashkenazic, then your tradition is to be careful and to throw out the egg. But if you are Sephardic, whether it is fertilized or unfertilized, if it's in the white, you remove the blood spots and you eat the egg. And if it's in the yolk, then you have to throw it out. Very simple rules. And somehow they managed to overcomplicate the situation. Anyway, that's it for tonight. And next week, we're going to have a look at checking vegetables for bugs.